Hello, YouTube. Almasta, or Almasty in plural, as a folklore character personifying demonological forces, are found in almost all the peoples of the North Caucasus. Kabardinians, Balkars, and Karachais call them Almasta. Chechens, an English name, them Almazi, and Kumyks, they call them Albasti Katin. Nogais call them Albasli. Aguls and Rutuls call them Albasti. Lesgins call them Albab. Laks call them Suhasulu. The Avars call them Rohdulai. Tats, or the mountain Jews of the Caucasus, call them Dedei all. You see, back in the Soviet times, the Abominable Snow people lived in the forests of the North Caucasus, and now they hide in caves, mountains, inaccessible thickets, or reportedly have completely died out. Well, Viktor Kotlyarov is a local historian living in the Kabardino-Balkaria. That's a republic of the Russian Federation up in the Caucasus Mountains area. He shared his evidence in a published book, a collection of documentary evidence about real encounters with hairy wild people, Almasta, from the local legends. And here is something from the August of 2019, and this was actually covered by the Russian newspaper Komsomolskaya Pravda, because they also pursue exploration of the paranormal phenomena in their country. On the Kabardinian plain and in the gorges of Balkaria, residents observed, encountered, communicated, and even cohabited with the forest people. The Abominable Snowman, Yeti, call it whatever you want, Bigfoot as well. It's out there. Not a few, not dozens, many hundreds of testimonies and descriptions, according to Kotlyarov. And after all, their republic in the Russian Federation was rightly called the breeding ground of abominable snowmen in the Caucasus. As an example, Kotlyarov cites real stories of tourists, zoologists, hunters, shepherds, and climbers, mountaineers, explorer of the high mountains. He refers to the memoirs of Magila Elmesov, uncle of the researcher of the High Altitude Geophysical Institute of the USSR Academy of Sciences, regarding Elbrus, whose name was Aldin Almesov, about the encounter with the murdered Almasta in the late 1930s. The beekeeper led him into the bushes about 150 meters from the tent where this dead, crouched Satan, as the locals called it, was lying. When he saw it, Almesov remembered for the rest of his life, what he saw: the already decomposed corpse of a creature very similar to a human being, a hairy body, an elongated face like that of a dog, long limbs disproportionately to the trunk. There was no hair on the palms of the creature. The toes were very long. He immediately realized that this was Almasty, or Almasta, about whom he heard so much, and more than once, of course. So the Viktor Kotlyarov heard another story from a resident of the village of Chornaya Rechka, who allegedly observed an adult male Almasta at night back in 1998. The silhouette was quite tall, standing on two legs. Bear, Alsan tried to convince himself. He realized that the bipedal creature approaching the hut was not an animal. It looked more like a man, tall, overgrown with dark fur. It walked up to the hut, raised its head, and stood there for a while, not moving and not making any sounds. The pungent smell hit him in the face, and Al-San, the local, guessed that the Almasta was in front of him, a forest man about whom his grandmother had told him a lot. If you believe the evidence given by the local historian, and there are several dozen items, then Almasty are very nimble, faster than a horse, strong, with brown or black hair, and completely harmless. With an intimidating appearance, they eat berries with nuts. They do not attack people. And there are both male and female individuals among them. There were even children. In the summer of 1959, a young Kabardinian somewhere in the forest caught a little girl, Almasta, 7 to 8 years old. Now, the gathered Kabardinians ordered to immediately take her to the forest where she was caught and let her go in order to avoid misfortunes. Kotlyarov referred here to the text of another researcher of cryptozoology. The author speaks hesitantly about possible contact with the relic hominoid. They say that most people are cruel. That's why human animals run away from acquaintance with them, run away from human beings. In recent years, the Bigfoot of the North Caucasus has not been noticed in person at all. The only thing is that in 2016, as Kotlyarov assured, footprints similar to human ones, but up to 70 centimeters in size, were found in the snow in the upper reaches of the Baksan Gorge and on the way to it, in the area of Kizil and Bedik. What struck him the most, residents of the North Caucasus seriously share with each other supposedly real cases of taming the monsters, as they were called. When, for example, a lonely old Kabardinian fed bread and cheese to a cautious creature, it gradually got used to it, and then it would sit next to the campfire. Reminds you about the Ukrainian Bigfoot stories that I related in the video that I made some time ago about the Ukrainian variety of Abominable Snowman. In some stories, it was said about Almasty, who lived in the old days in mountain villages and performed such simple tasks for their guardians as pulling water from a well and carrying buckets and firewood, added Kotlyarov. Is it fiction or a mysterious, hidden from people reality? Well, the newspaper asked a scientist from the Institute of Ethnology and Anthropology in Moscow about this. To put it mildly, a dubious discovery. That's what the scientist said. People dreamed about it. If we are talking about hominids, then the remains of Neanderthals were found in large numbers. Moreover, DNA was extracted from their dental tissues and later proved that they are our ancestors. If the abominable snowman existed, then of course their remains would also be there. There is no point in hiding it. Understand, the last Neanderthal died 40,000 years ago, and he was studied, and the abominable snowmen allegedly were about to live. Well, but there are no remains. All this only says that there are no abominable snowmen, according to the chairman of the Council of the Public Organization, Council on Public Health and Demographic Problems, sociologist and anthropologist Daria Khalturina. And that's what she told Komsomolskaya Pravda of the North Caucasus edition. But with all respect to the eminent scientists, we need to look to the January of 2022. You see, tourists found traces of the abominable snowman near Stavropol. The monster, as some call such creatures, may have health problems. In the forests of Zheleznovodsk, tourists found traces of an abominable snowman. Photos of huge footprints were published by the mayor of the resort town, Yevgeny Bakulin. Eyewitnesses found footprints during a walk in the forest near the cave of ancient people and compared them with their feet. About 4 shoes of an adult man can fit in one footprint. I don't know if this is a proof of the existence of the abominable snowman or not. But there are photos that make you wonder how many more mysteries we have in the forest, Bakulin wrote. Many users were surprised by such a finding, but the most attentive were concerned that the Yeti has signs of flat feet. Perhaps this is the norm for such creatures, but from the opinion that Yeti are humanoid, it follows that the deviation seriously affects their health. Abominable snowmen are not new to the North Caucasus. Local historian Viktor Kotlerov, who lives in Kabardino-Balkaria, told Komsomolskaya Pravda that there is a lot of evidence that many such creatures live in the forest. At the same time, despite their impressive size, they are quite harmless and they feed on herbs and berries. As I said before, and the newspaper repeated this assertion. What struck the reporters the most, residents of the North Caucasus seriously share with each other those supposedly real cases of how they tame the monsters. Well, let's now look at some history. The main contribution to the study of the Caucasus populations of relict hominoids was made by the tireless Zhana Iosifovna Kaufman, a surgeon, a mountaineer, a participant in the battle for the Caucasus in the World War II, a resident of Moscow and a citizen of France. She actually moved to the North Caucasus in the year of 1962 and devoted herself to studying the Almasta. Zhana Maria Iosifovna Kaufman was honorary chairman of the Russian Society of Cryptozoology, mountaineer, veteran of the search for and study of hominids. She was the participant of the Pamir expedition in 1958, and I covered this expedition in my other videos. I'll attach the playlist so you can see. It's in the description to this video. It's a very interesting subject, and I concentrate on different areas of Eurasia, and not only Eurasia. I've done some research in other parts of the world, but we're speaking about Eurasia today. Cryptozoology, we recall, is the science of animals whose existence has not been proven or is considered impossible in a given area at a given time. From the information available on the internet, we know that Zhana Maria Kaufman was born in July of 1919. She lived in Moscow. The address was 23 Bashilovskaya Street, Building 2. But, of course, she had not been seen there in the later years. She lived in France. Some sources say in Switzerland. And she passed away in July of 2021. And then the details of the biography that amaze the imagination. Maria Kaufman's father was a Russified Frenchman whose ancestors remained in Russia during the French Revolution of 1789. He was a participant in the revolutionary demonstrations in Russia in 1905. And he was in contact with the rebellious crew of the battleship Potemkin. He was sentenced to death for this. That was under the Tsar. And they arranged for him to escape, after which he reached Italy. Later, when the First World War began, he joined the French army as a volunteer. He married a French woman, an opera singer, and from their marriage in 1919, Marie-Jeanne was born in Paris. While in the 1930s, the father of Zhana Kaufman worked in Russia, in the Soviet Russia. He was arrested and punished by the socialist regime, like millions others in my country. And after the concentration camp, he was exiled to Uglitch. That is how they canceled people in the last century in the Soviet Union. Marie-Jeanne, or Zhana Maria, along with her older sister, came to the USSR from France in the early 1930s. She lived in Moscow, where she graduated from the Second Medical Institute, having received the profession of a surgeon. She was fond of mountaineering, having conquered many Caucasian peaks in the mountains there, and heard for the first time about the abominable snowman living in these places. During the World War II, she valiantly served at the front, and she took part in the battle for the Caucasus. After the war in 1948, Stalin's oppressions and cruelties of the socialist motherland also affected her. Jana Maria spent 6 years in concentration camps. After that, she lived in the city of Serpukhov near Moscow. One day, her mountaineering friends introduced her to the scientist Boris Porshnev. He passed away in 1972, a Soviet historian and sociologist, doctor of historical and philosophical sciences. And on top of everything else, the founder of hominology, the science of Bigfoot. Boris Fyodorovich Porshnev collected the richest historical evidence of the existence of a hominoid. Dating back to the oldest literary monuments, showed how over the centuries in the area of distribution of this creature was reduced, eventually pushed high into the mountains, although its main habitat was always much lower. But most importantly, he presented convincing evidence that when we talk about this abominable snowman, we're not talking about people who have gone wild for various reasons, but about relict hominoids. It was from that meeting that the long-term cooperation between Porshnev and Kaufman began. And he included her among the participants of the 1958 World Expedition of the Academy of Sciences of the USSR in search of the Bigfoot. Jana Kaufman became a worthy successor of the scientist who never saw his work on hominoids printed during his lifetime. In 1960, she organized an expedition base in the village of Sarmakova in Kabardino-Balkaria, equipped with photo and film equipment and vehicles at her own expense. At first, it was a horse and a motorcycle. A little later, using Soviet vehicles Zaporozhets and UAZ. It is from here that she and her volunteer assistants, who came from all over the Soviet Union, made numerous expeditions in search of Almasta. And the search goes on. And in the North Caucasus, and I'm sure in other areas. And all we can hope for is that human beings do not harm this unusual, misunderstood, inexplicable creatures. I'll bring you more information about such research. And if you like my research and my videos, please help me. You'll find the links in the description to this video. Thank you for your attention to my work. Please tell others about my channel. Please like my video.